Hello YouTube and welcome back to another playthrough of Our Life. We finished up shopping last time, which ended on a rather sad note. Cove's balloon exploded right on a table, and so now we're going to do this chapter called Grown Up, and we will see how it goes. One sweltering summer day, you were in your living room with Cove, listening to the sounds of the birds chattering outside the window while you lay across the rug on the floor. Cove's dad had dropped him off earlier, and your moms had left the two of you along with Lizzie to play amongst yourselves. It had been too hot to go outside in the afternoon, at least according to Mommy, so your sister was starting to get impatient waiting for her golf class that evening. The three of you had had trouble finding something fun to do. The beach and the playground were off limits, and you felt that it was too warm for anything like playing with your fuzzy toy animals. Then suddenly a light came to Lizzie's big brown eyes and her smile spread wide across her face. Having an idea gave her a new wave of energy. Since we're stuck inside, we should be adults. They don't play outdoors anyways. They're always inside and telling everybody they're too busy to play.
Why? Duh.
I said why, and it'll be fun. Duh. What do they do inside that we don't, besides use the phone a lot? Excluding a small huff, Lizzie decides to ignore Cove.
What do you think?
Jamie, what do you think? Do you want to? Oh, God. I mean, honestly, what would I have said? I'm trying to think. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this is more like me. I would have just said, I don't know. I know I'm trying to make Cove, like, fall for me, but apparently the choices I would pick would just wouldn't result in that, so... Oh well, I'm gonna go with I don't know. Please, Jamie, when have I ever had a bad idea? Whenever we play with you? Whoa. I wasn't asking you. I'll try it, but that sounds boring. Okay, I'll stay. Sorry I have others to do. You kept hesitating. I mean, it does sound kind of boring. It's not gonna be, I guarantee. Lizzie seemed more determined than ever, and you could only sigh. Satisfied that neither of you were about to bail on her, Lizzie thought over her options while you watched. After a few seconds, she clapped her hands together and beamed, apparently having settled on something without asking either of you. Okay, I'm gonna be a professional golfer. Jamie, you and Cove can be a beach volleyball player, a gymnast, or a tennis player. Okay, so we've got options. Why can't we pick anything we want? Because I have a fun idea, that's why. God. If we have to play sports as adults? Yep. But there's other kinds of sports too.
Right?
It isn't the same. What do you think, Jamie? Don't those choices sound super cool? You want to be that, huh? I mean, no, not really. I kind of like those. It really doesn't. It sounds like a blast. Is there anything else we can be? Yeah, I would rather do that. Lizzie stomped a foot on the ground. Nope, come on, just decide already. Ugh. Knowing Lizzie wouldn't let this go anytime soon, you sighed. Cove was not impressed with Lizzie's attitude, though he didn't bother talking more about it now. You thought over the list of possibilities: beach, volleyball, gymnastics, or tennis. Out of all of them, you'd prefer to play... fine, beach volleyball. If you couldn't spend the afternoon at the beach for real, then you might as well pretend you were there. You could even wear your swimsuit to make it seem more realistic, although Lizzie probably wouldn't let you run off and do that now that she had you here. Yes, that was clearly the top option. I guess, I'll be a volleyball player.
Alright.
How about you, Cove? I'll have a volleyball team too. Lizzie threw her hands in the air, making an annoyed sound. You guys can't be the same thing. That's not how it works. You didn't say that. The rule is picking from the list. You can't keep adding more. Lizzie looked at the two of you, then shook her head, resigned to losing this battle, but not the war. There you go. Lizzie being all strategic. I can't remember how old she is. What is it, like 8 or something? I can't remember. Fine, you're both volleyball players, but you're on the same team because there's only one. God, Lizzie. Lizzie's ponytail bobbed when she proudly stretched her arms wide. The Olympic team. What? We're Olympic athletes who just competed in the Olympics. Cove didn't seem all that impressed with the announcement. He made a face and adjusted the glasses on his nose. That's really specific.
Rude.
That's what makes it fun. Anyway, Lizzie marched back and forth in front of us, getting lost in her own imagination. I won all gold medals, and people are calling me the next Mickey Wright. Gee, who's that? Lizzie stopped on the spot and turned on him, her brown eyes shining with impatience. It doesn't matter if you know who she is. It's a golf thing. You guys won medals too. Your team placed it silver. It's more real if we're not all first place. I'm sorry. Silver sucks. I don't want silver. I'm okay with that. Hey, we can do better. Silver's not bad. Nice. You stayed silent. Silver's not bad. It may not... Did you see his eyebrows? It may not be first place, but you knew that silver medals were still really good to get at the Olympics. But it isn't gold.
Sorry.
Lots of people lose at the Olympics. Them's the breaks. Then you're the one who did, not me. Lizzie looked taken aback by Cove's declaration, as though the thought of her losing was completely absurd. No way, it wouldn't make sense. I'm already practicing my golf game. She took a golfing stance to make her point, pretending to swing her club and hit an invisible ball. So what kind of house do you want to live in? Cove hadn't changed his mind about winning, but thinking about where he'd live as an adult appealed to him apparently because he looked back at Lizzie with some of the anger fading. I'm going to live on the beach. Lizzie made a face at him, poking out her tongue. I guess nothing is right for Lizzie. That's kind of boring. We already have that. No, not like the normal houses here with a street. On it, right on the sand, by the water. Just like that, all the tension was back. You hadn't even had a chance to choose where you'd want to live. That's not very fun or smart, Cove. You can't live on a bunch of sand and shells. But I want to, and I will. Cove narrowed his eyes at Lizzie, even though she stood half a head taller than him. You didn't give out a list of things to pick from this time, so I'm picking that. Why are we even playing pretend if we can't imagine anything?
Jeez.
Well, I'm gonna live in a mansion far away from here and far away from you. One with an indoor pool and a place to practice my award-winning golfing. How come you were yelling about mine when your idea is even more impossible? Lizzie's face flushed red, her hands balling into fists at her sides. It's not impossible, and it's better than yours. Disagreements always seemed to crop up when the two of them were together, and you always felt like you were stuck in the middle. But when it came to the topic at hand, this time you thought you prefer a mansion, being on the beach was cooler, you wanted Cove was right, you were tired of deciding between either of them. I mean, honestly, that sounds like me. I don't know, Cove was right. I mean, he's got a point that, like, you know, imagining things, you know, there's not supposed to be, like, the kind of rules in place that Lizzie wants to, you know, hit him over the head with. But honestly, this sounds more like me. You didn't engage with their bickering, instead dreamt up your own dream house. And you weren't going to share your idea with them either. You already knew it was a good one. You can swim whenever you want if you live on the beach. We can still swim anytime we want from where we live now. Being a little closer doesn't mean anything. Says you. The two of them scowled at each other. You're being so unreasonable. You... I don't get what you want. This game doesn't make sense.
Ugh.
It does. You have to be realistic. I said that. But you're not. You had no idea what to do to make them stop at this point. It seemed like the two of them would just keep working each other up as long as they could. Nothing you said so far had kept them from being mad. Thankfully, like a greeting card angel, Mom walked into the room. Lizzie rushed to her, hanging onto the hem of her shirt and poking out her tongue at Cove. Lizzie, Jamie, it's time to get ready to go.
You alright with that?
Sorry you have to leave already, Cove. Their mommy said she'll walk you home so you won't be left in the cold. Cove was still glaring at Lizzie, his face flushed red with anger. I can go by myself, but... Bye, Jamie. There was still a harsh edge to the brief farewell, but you knew it wasn't you he was mad at. Without giving Mom a chance to stop him, Cove stood up and stalked out of the room, shoulders drawn tight.
Huh?
Okay. Worried, Mom turned to look down at you and Lizzie. You two were playing nice with our new friend, weren't you? You told the truth. They were fighting, Cove and Lizzie, for the whole time. Your sister's jaw dropped, looking betrayed, as Mom put both hands on her hips. Elizabeth! I told you to be kind to him. He's having a hard time right now. Lizzie's mouth closed back up, replaced with a tiny frown. I know, I tried, but he was... No buts. We both know you can show someone a great time when you put your mind to it. We're going to apologize to Cove and his dad over the phone when he gets home from work tonight. Lizzie hung her head, dragging a foot across the ground in front of her. Okay, Mom. Good girl. You caught pieces of Lizzie sulking to herself about how it was his fault too, but it was over. Alright, we better get a move on.
Let's go.
Let's go, kids. Nolani, where did you leave the car keys? Mom hustled you all out the door, and you noticed during the car ride to golf practice that Lizzie was quieter than usual. She was usually the first one to request which music to listen to in the car, but she didn't say a thing. Your parents noticed she wasn't in a mood to be bothered. They gave her space, and Mommy just asked you what you'd like to listen to. You picked your favorite song. It always made the car ride more fun. That one. Eventually, Lizzie came round and started singing along with you. You both knew all the words, and your moms even sang along too. When the car ride was over, you spent the twilight hour watching Lizzie hit things with other girls her age. You didn't know much about golf, but you could tell that she really liked it, so you sat with your moms and tried to puzzle it out. It was nice sitting outside after being cooped up in the house all day, and you stretched out your legs to let the last few minutes of sun warm your skin. When the sun was finally out of sight, dipping behind the horizon, you all got ready to leave. Instead of going straight home, your moms took the family out to dinner. You went to a restaurant you had all been going to ever since you could remember. The whole afternoon had been a bunch of shouting you hadn't been able to stop, but you could kinda tell that all this helped Lizzie be less angry. The car ride home was quiet, with only the radio providing escape from silence. Lizzie had been in better spirits now, but the closer you got to your neighborhood, the more she wiggled in her seat and frowned out the window. She knew what was coming when you all got back home. Clearly, she was dreading it. Soon enough, Mom was turning onto your street and reversing into the driveway. Once she cut the ignition, it was dead silent. No one spoke, only unbuckled their seatbelts and opened their doors. Lizzie was the last one out. Once everyone was inside and done taking off their shoes, she propped her hands on her hips.
So,
Now then, Mr. Holden's car is in his driveway, so he should be back from work. That's good news, isn't it, Elizabeth? You and Cove can hash things out before the day is done. Lizzie didn't complain or put up a fight. Her head ducked so she didn't have to meet anyone's eyes. She nodded once. Good. Let's move this to the kitchen. Mom went over to the house phone, the rest of you following behind her. Mommy put a gentle hand on Lizzie's shoulder as they walked side by side. You watched them from the back. This was only happening because you told on Lizzie. You didn't regret it. You felt a little guilty, and like doing it, but it was her fault for doing it in the first place. You didn't regret it. You didn't regret it at all. You frowned to yourself, recalling how Cove had left in such a bad way. Hopefully time and Lizzie's pending apology would raise his spirits and smooth things over between them. The four of you stood around the kitchen in a lopsided square. All eyes were on Lizzie, who kept her gaze on her feet. You remember the number for Cove's house, don't you, honey? Lizzie jerked her head in a nod, sullen. Without further prompting, she stepped forward and she began to dial. Mom reached over and pressed a button on the base. Suddenly, you could hear the phone ringing. She turned on the speaker. The phone rang a couple of times, then stopped. Mr. Holden's warm voice came through the other end. "Evening, Holden residence." Lizzie looked over at Mommy, unsure. She nodded encouragingly. "Hi, Mr. Holden. It's, Lizzie. Can I talk to Cove?"
Absolutely.
"Lizzie Donovan? What a surprise! But of course you can say hey to the boy." He sounded cheery as usual, though definitely meant it when he said it was a surprise. You thought hard, and you were sure that your sister had never called Cove's house before. Mom spoke up before Mr. Holden or Lizzie could say anything more. Her arms were crossed over her chest, her lips pursed. "Hi, Clef. Nolani, Jamie, and I are here too." "Good evening. We're sorry to bother you so late." You spoke up to say hello. "Hi. The gang's all here, huh? Is something the matter?" His voice grew a bit concerned. Mommy was quick to reassure him. "No. Well, yes, but it's going to be okay. Lizzie and Cove got into a bit of a fight today. We were hoping that the two of them could talk and make up. Is this a good time for you and Cove?"
What?
"A fight?" "Cove didn't tell me anything about that when I came home. It does explain the funk he's been in tonight." He chuckled lightly. Despite that, it didn't seem like he really thought it was funny. "Anyway, it's good you didn't catch us at a bad time. I'll go grab him for you." There was some shuffling on the other end. He must not have gone far because you could still hear him calling out. "Cove, there's someone on the phone for you." After a beat of silence, there was more muffled talking from Cove's dad. "Come on, bud. Lizzie's called just so she could talk to you."
Are you sure?
"Jamie's on the other end listening too. Don't you want to say hi?" It took a bit of back and forth, though the conversation seemed one-sided since you couldn't hear Cove properly. Eventually, Cove took the phone from his dad.
Hi.
"Hello?" Hey, it's Lizzie." "Yeah, I know. Dad told me." Cove's tone was defensive. Lizzie turned to Mom, scowling. One stern look from her, though, and Lizzie turned away.
Sorry.
"I just called to say I'm sorry for not playing nice with you today. I won't do it again." Lizzie's eyes were downcast, her voice low. You could tell she felt uncomfortable apologizing to Cove in front of everyone. She was still being genuine about feeling bad. Cove must have realized that too, because he sighed quietly. "I want gold, and I think Jamie should win too." "Really? He thought you were worth gold even though you hadn't even wanted it?" Lizzie was momentarily stunned silent by the demand. She'd probably forgot that they had even happened already. "All right, we all win the gold." "Okay, I guess I'm sorry too." A sense of relief washed over everyone at his acceptance of the apology. Mom uncrossed her arms. While Mommy's shoulders relaxed, Lizzie's eyebrows raised up. You wondered if she thought that he'd refuse her apology. "Dad, can I get off the phone now?" You couldn't see him, but it was obvious that Cove felt awkward about the situation. He had come off uncomfortable the entire time, really.
Yeah.
"Yeah, you can go back to your room if you want. Be sure to say goodbye first, though." Bye, Lizzie." "Bye."
Bye.
"Bye, Jamie." You perked up at the mention of your name. You smiled, even if he couldn't see it. "Bye, Cove." With that said, Cove must have handed the phone to his dad and left, since Mr. Holden spoke up.
That's a relief.
"All's well that ends well, as they say. Thanks for arranging this. I'm sure he appreciates it." As Mom replied, Lizzie tugged on Mommy's hand to catch her attention. Can I go now too?
Good job.
Sure, sweetie. Thank you very much for apologizing to Cove. Mom flashed a brief smile at Lizzie and nodded her agreement. Given permission to leave, Lizzie scurried off towards the stairs. She seemed to be feeling much better with the incident behind her. Mom and Mommy returned to the phone, taking it off the speaker. They continued talking to Mr. Holden. You couldn't tell what about. You were glad that was the end of it all. Lizzie and Cove might not get along, and probably still won't, but they weren't mad at each other anymore. Mom and Mommy weren't upset either. Everything was finally back to normal. With that thought, you retreated to your own room with a spring in your step. And there we have it. Another one completed. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me again today. I'm the Planet Rocks. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit the bell for notifications, and do like this video. Also, you can find me on Facebook. I'm the Planet Rocks there as well. You can also follow me on Twitter. Please do. There will be another video of our life released next week. Thank you so much for joining me, and I am the Planet Rocks. I'll see you next week.